G'day, g'day, and welcome back to another episode of the Bradley J. Driver Experience, or the Experience as we're calling it now. I guess that's the word around town, hot off the press. You've heard it here first. We're rebranding. We're pushing in that direction. A little bit less ego. The show's less about me now, more about the people that are coming on, which is what we want. It's how we like it. And why not kick it off that way with a bit of a treat for you all, whether you're listening or watching here today. There's going to be some stories told on this podcast. This man is... You know what, I'm kind of referring to him as similar to a Neapolitan tub of ice cream because you get those three flavours in one. That's right, I'm talking UFC fighter, big wave surfer, bra boy, ladies and gentlemen, from your home, your car, or wherever you are. Give a very warm welcome to the one and only Richie Vas Vaculik. How are you, brother?
Good, Brad. Thanks for the intro, mate. I like the Napoli. I can't pronounce it.
Yeah,
I know the ice cream you're talking about.
Mate, I had to have a look at the pronunciation before I jumped on too. So it's mate, it's a pleasure to have you here.
Mate, it's a pleasure to be here.
It's funny because, mate, many years ago now, I used to watch The Crew on telly with the old boy.
Oh, mate, it was a lot of fun. The Crew, very fond memories of that, and it's funny still stay in contact with a lot of the kids, especially in the final season when we did the Crew Generation 2 with Chris Casaselli, Jamie Malarkey, and Isaac Harbin, the three fighters that I mentored. Are all doing phenomenal things, and Macaria, Mark Matthews, one of my closest mates who I was part of the crew with, and Mick Lawrence and Nick Cook, all the guys are involved. We also stay in touch regularly, and the crew was a lot of fun, mate. So I'm glad people enjoyed it. You know,
like I kind of alluded to in the intro there, it's often that I sit across from someone here on the pod and we talk about, a particular sport or a particular topic of interest for them in their life, but for you, there's so many things. And I think that's what makes you such an interesting character, to sit there and talk to and to watch, whether it be on the screen or, listen to on a podcast, because there's so many elements to your life that are extreme. Are your adrenal glands shot by now? Or you still got something left in the tank?
Yeah, no, I guess I was drawn to things that, sort of get the adrenaline pumping, but I also... sort of joke about it too. I was just a victim of small man syndrome, growing up. I'd always put my hand up and say, I'll do this before really thinking too much. And joke about it so much. It's actually been I did a book a couple of years ago. There's a whole chapter in the book about, my small man syndrome and how it played a part in leading me down the path of things that I, end up turning into a profession and career. And I do love challenging myself but there was definitely elements there of kind of committing to things before I gave it too much thought, and then once I'd commit to it, I'd try to go on with it, and they often were things that got the heart rate up for sure.
I want to talk about all those things today. One thing I'll say is, and I commend you because it's something that I'm fascinated in, is sitting across from people who have made a career off the back of the things they love. And for me, you wouldn't know too much of my background, but I used to be a greasy real estate agent, and I just fell out of love with work, right? Yep. And I just felt there was no purpose or passion in work for me anymore. It was literally rocking up to do a job.
Yeah, Groundhog Day.
Exactly, and dragging yourself out of bed at 7 a.m, as opposed to now, we were speaking before, me and Dicko, shout out to Joey Dixon, the man's, live and in the presence here in the audience today, the audience of one that is. And we were saying, I bounce out of bed at 4:30, 4:45 every day now, just keen for the day because I'm doing what I love.
Yep.
And this is my full-time gig. I get to speak to people for a living, to share a story, and there's something about that it feels like you're really living life.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. And it does, it sounds a bit cliche these days, to say, you love what you do, you never work a day in your life, but it is so true. I could not imagine, getting in my car and commuting to work and being in traffic and just really dreading going to work each day. It's torture, So, I couldn't agree more that to find things that you enjoy doing, that bring you passion, give you purpose, and if you can work out a way to turn them or have them be a part of your work, and I think it's pivotal. It's I think it has to be done to live a happy life. You know what I mean? Otherwise, you just see the days tick over, the years tick over, and before you know it, you're lying on your deathbed going, "Fuck, I wish I hadn't worked so hard. I wish I'd have chased this dream or this goal." The idea of that gives me shivers if I was ever to be in that position. So I want to try and do those things now. And
regret's a scary thing, hey?
Yeah, I mean, I listened to a podcast actually about a lady called Bronnie Ware. She wrote a book or did a blog. It's called The 5 Regrets of the Dying. She has
Heard about this book, yeah.
Oh, it's awesome. And that was like a little slap in the face. Like, fuck, I don't want to be in that position. You know what I mean? I want to be in a position where, each day I'm remind myself how grateful, how lucky I am to be doing what I'm doing, and not find myself. And who knows when that day will be? But sitting there going, fuck, I wish I hadn't worked so hard and spent more time with my family or my kids, and surf more or chase that dream of martial arts or whatever it may be. And Bronnie Weir, she ended up being working in palliative care for many years. Palliative care is when they're not getting out, so their final month, year maybe of living, and they are going to pass away, and she's with them for those final stages, and she kept hearing the same themes being brought up by these her patients who are dying, and they that was some of them. I wish I'd worked so hard. I wish I'd chased my dreams and not be scared to make change and all that kind of stuff. So real powerful podcast and something that stuck with me, and everyone should implement that now, not wait till it's too late,
100%, I agree with you. Was there ever a stage of your life where there was a mundane 9 to 5 or kind of a regular job?
Look, I'm a carpenter by trade, and I was lucky to get into that at a pretty about 19. I did my HSC. I left school. All I wanted to do was travel and surf. I had no aspirations of going to uni or whatnot. I literally just wanted to surf and travel the world. So I got into a few labouring jobs or whatever was going, and there's a moments in just being a brickies labourer and digging holes, and in that sort of 6 to 10 month period that I was like, I can't do this forever. Like, this is not digging holes, and it was just, I found that really draining, and just time moved really slow when I was doing some of those labouring jobs. Luckily, Wazza Fox, who lives down Albion Park now, shout out to Wazza, he had just lost his licence. He was a carpet layer, and he was like, Rich, what are you getting paid labouring each day? And I was like, $90. And he said, I'll pay you that just to drive me around, because I just got my P's at the time. So I was just a carpet layer chauffeur to start off with, but then it's a great trade, and of course I picked it up. Kept me on for ages, and we ended up being partners, and I fell into the trade of laying carpet, which I do enjoy. I don't not like what I do for a crust. But I feel very fortunate to also have big periods of my life where I've chased dreams and done other things as well. But so I know what you mean though. I've tasted that feeling of hating going to work each day, and that was when I was labouring and not enjoying what I was doing. So I guess maybe subconsciously I'd made a decision there and then to make sure that it's not going to be my way of earning a living, and don't fall in the trap of that kind of work and lifestyle. So I still lay carpet today, but I've been quite fortunate to have other ways of earning money and different things to do. I like to keep it changing too and mix it up. But carpet laying is good. It's good. You get paid on what you lay and not by the hour. So incentive to get in there, work hard, get the job done, and go home early so you can surf and train or whatnot is a good way to live.
I like that. Yeah. Let's talk about the scene growing up, Maroubra. Obviously a big part of your life and has been probably fundamental in everything you've gone on to do, right? I heard you on another podcast, I can't remember which one it was, but I was listening and you talking about growing up and you met a lot of your mates through the board riders at Maroubra there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you grew up there from young fella?
Yeah, I've always been in some suburbs. We grew up out at Little Bay near La Perouse till I was about 20, but the closest surfing beach was Maroubra. That's where I did my nippers as a kid and fell in love with surfing. It's for as far back as I can remember, surfing's all I ever wanted to do. My uncle, he came across from Manchester. My mum's from Manchester, and my uncle was surf mad. He picked up surfing in England and found his way over to Australia and lived on the northern beaches at Avalon. And he pushed me into my first waves on a fiberglass board and got me standing. And I was just hooked. But my mum wasn't that confident in the water and taking me down the beach. So back at Maroubra until I was about 10, I was just riding a bodyboard, and then my mum went across to the shops to get a coffee, started talking to Sean, who owned the local sort of milk bar, and she was saying, I want to get my son surfing his fiberglass board down here at Maroubra, but I'm just not confident, having him on this fiberglass board when it's just me down here. And he goes, go across to the surf shop and speak to Hair Bear, and he'll get him involved in the board riders, and then, he'll be set. So that's what she did. She just stumbled across to Maroubra Underground, which is just across the road. Met Hair Bear, Paul Chandler, who lives down in Wollongong now too. He works at Wollongong University. I think he's the dean. Just signed me up to board riders, and that's where I met all the boys. They all took me under their wing. Within a week, I was leaving all my clothes and my stuff down at the surf shop, so my mum could just drop me down at the beach in the morning, pick me up in the arvo, and I was looked after. And had a place to keep my stuff and get changed, and that's how I just, I always loved surfing, but fell in love with the community and Maroubra itself, and I was very fortunate to be taken under the wing. There's plenty of grommet abuse as well, and it wasn't all rainbows and flowers, but it was great fun, and then the board riders, it was a great community, and then just how I got around all the boys, and still living down there today, still part of the board riders, and it's been fantastic.
And obviously then that develops, like anything in life, you find a love for something, and then the regular wave isn't enough of a rush, right? And then you're getting pushed in, and probably being one of those younger guys in the crew, the boys are pushing you into some more dangerous territory and some bigger waves.
Yeah, and I was a sucker for peer pressure too,
Yeah.
Like I said, it wouldn't take much to try and convince me to do something stupid. But, and like it, in most surf communities where, just across the hill at Bronny, or you find any beach around the world, there's a community of surfers, and there's always that little bit element of testosterone and machiness that when the waves get big, you're expected to paddle out, and that was very much alive and well in Maroubra, and we just happened to have such a strong team of big wave surfers. The Aberton brothers were pretty fearless when the waves got big and making a big name for himself, and especially when I was a grommet, Kobe was leading the charge. He very quickly became one of Australia's best big wave surfers, and then one of the best big wave surfers around the world, and just below him, chomping on his heels, was Mark Matthews, who is a great mate of mine, and I've always looked up to as an older brother as well, and that's just to name a few. It's Wayne Cleveland, Howie, Seto, Rito, so many good big wave surfers around Maroubra. When the waves got big, there's always a group of guys to get out there with, and encourage me to get out there, and that's what I did fall in love with. I did want to be the next Tom Carroll growing up. I wanted to win world titles and chase a dream of competitive surfing. But it was, in my early teens, I realised that going around doing the pro juniors and spending my money on that avenue of surfing wasn't bringing me the joy I'd hoped. And on the other side of the coin, you had Kobe and Mark going around the world, going around Australia on this adventure, finding new waves, surfing new slabs, and getting a lot of exposure through that in the surf magazines and the DVDs, and they were paving a way as a potential career path. I was just drawn to that, and once I started doing trips with them, finding that even though I was shit scared out there, that I could handle myself and sort of control that fear a little bit and still get some amazing waves. It was just addictive, and then I just put all my small finances and all my energy into chasing waves with the boys.
Talk about fighting fear, and that's the title of the movie that you and Mark had together. Do you remember charging into your first real big wave and the outcome of that?
Well, I wouldn't say it was really charging into my first big wave. It was my first memories of being out there just petrified was around the stage where I was just allowed to bring my fiberglass board back down from Avalon. I would have been 10 or 11, and my mum was sitting on the beach, and maybe it might have been 4 to 6 foot on the beach. Maybe when you're 10, everything looks a lot bigger. It could have been 2 to 3 foot. I'm not sure, but luckily at the south end of Maroubra where I was surfing that day, there's a nice rip that runs along the rock, so you can get out the back relatively easy. But once I was out the back, I realised it was a lot bigger than I expected, and I was pretty terrified and wasn't quite sure that I knew what to do out there. And next thing I knew, there was a group of lads out there, and they all started scrambling towards the horizon. So I was like, fuck, just followed suit, but I was a few feet behind, and there's big sets coming, and I just got caught inside and cleaned up and washed to the shore. I just dragged my board back to my mum in tears, just like I was so scared. I got so hammered, didn't even catch a wave, just got washed back to the beach, and that was my first kind of memory of just having that experience of being out in in an environment where you wanted to be. I wanted to be out there, and I wanted to catch waves, but it was just a little bit over my head, and I had no experience under my belt, and just put myself in the wrong spot, and got washed back to the beach. And that happened a few times. I came back to the beach a few times. Actually, my first heat in board riders when I joined the Maroubra Board Riders Association. I paddled out, and again it was kind of maybe 4 foot, maybe a touch bigger, and I couldn't get out the back. I just couldn't get my way out the back. I just getting washed ashore, and that was another experience that ended in tears. I just came back, but all the boys patted me on the back because I was by a few years the youngest kid in the cadets. The majority of guys were like 14 to 16. I was like 11. But I got a lot of pats on the back come up just for trying, and kept paddling for that 20 minutes. But so I felt like I did take a lesson out of that. There was even though I did get away with it, there was you keep giving it a nudge, and the boys flipped into a positive, even though I didn't get away with it. I was something to be proud of. So
I could be getting this wrong here, but there's a wave, I think, which featured a lot in the crew and a lot of the stuff that I've watched with you guys. It's not far from Maroubra Beach. Is it Cape Fear?
Yeah, so it's where the Red Bull had their comp there a few years ago. They call it Red Bull Cape Fear. It's called Cape Solander, Pikers Hole. We called it ours when we first started surfing it because there's a bunch of bodyboarders surfing it. And I just mentioned it jokingly when I was talking to some surf magazines. Like, it's ours now, and that's stuck as well. So that's a name that we've always referred to it as well. But it's a phenomenal wave. It's on the southern headland of Botany Bay, where when you get the right swell, it comes out of really deep water and hits a super shallow rock ledge, and then just unloads, and it's deadly too. Yeah, it's pretty unique in that it's got it breaks super shallow, and it's right in front of the cliff face there. So if you're to fall early, you not only do you get dragged across that shallow shelf, you get bounced up against the cliffs as well, and you got backwash coming off those cliffs as well. So sometimes you think you've done everything perfect and you sit in the barrel, and all you need to do now is get spat out, and the backwash hits you and sends you cartwheeling. So it's a phenomenal wave. You can get some of the best barrels out there for sure. So we found, I sort of started surfing that when I was about 18, 19, so almost 20 years ago now, and pretty much try to hit it every swell since, and it's a phenomenal wave, and it's been some amazing times out there.
Have you ever had bad moments out there?
Yeah, well, I'm just coming off shoulder surgery now, a full shoulder reco in September. I surfed out there in August of last year, and we had a really good winter actually. We had a lot of east coast lows, and we got the swells we need, which is you need a swell in that 4 to 6 foot plus range, anywhere between 15 foot, 4 to 6 foot to 15 feet, and ideally you want a lot of east in that direction of the swell as well. And I was stoked on that Sunday that we surfed in the morning. It was kind of small and not exactly how we'd hoped, but we had a fun little paddle session out there. It wasn't quite big enough to tow, and but that afternoon my phone started going off, and Timber Nathan was there filming, saying the swell's definitely kicking like it was predicted to. And all the boys from Cronulla who were surfing, like Kip and Kurt, they were out there, but they were just paddling. They didn't have a ski, and there was sets starting to come through that you couldn't paddle into. So I jumped on the phone with Josh Koo, I'd surfed it with that morning, and he's got a jet ski, and said, let's get over there. It sounds like it's really starting to turn on. And we did, and we were only guys with a ski out there, so we were lucky enough just to have a pick of all the big sets. And we had a ball all afternoon. It was getting dark. Last one before dark, of course. Me and Josh were trying to be gentlemen. Like, you had the last one. No, you had the last one. And I said, all right, give me one more. And that last one pulled in. And as the swell got bigger, which it went from the sort of 4 to 6 foot range at 3 o'clock to like 5:30, it was definitely in that 12 foot plus range, and had gone a little bit more south in the direction. And very last wave, I sort of pulled in. Like I said, thought I'd done all the hard work, and then the wave kind of ran off the reef a bit and just clamped, and the lip landed on my shoulder, and blew the shoulder apart. And so I've had a few injuries out there. Another one was when I fell, and I was rolling around underwater, and the nose of my board hit me in the throat, and gave me a pretty nasty hole in my throat, which I didn't think too much of at the time until I got to the doctors, and they said you're pretty lucky to actually get out of the water. Had it been anything sharper than the nose of your board, your carotid artery would have been severed, and you wouldn't get out of the water.
Yeah, Jesus.
So I went pretty white then, but there's been a heap of injuries out there. Kobe Graham from Bronny broke his neck. There's been heaps of Kobe Gaines is probably by far the worst. I've seen Jughead go down in the Red Bull Cape Fear contest when it was that huge sort of nor'east swell. He got a heap of staples in his head, and if it wasn't for the water patrol and Ryan Hitwood being there right on the scene, that he could have been in a far worse position because he was unconscious, and like I said, had a gaping hole in his head. So it's handed out its fair share of beatings.
I can imagine. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you get copper beating in the water, and you also copper beating in the ring, right? And,
well, the aim is not copper beating in either. I'm trying to, but unfortunately,
it just comes part and parcel
of both fields. But
how did you get into the fighting?
Because
you probably weren't scared to throw them growing up, I can imagine.
Well, yeah, I wanted to be able to handle myself growing up. Like
Yeah.
I said, growing up in Maroubra in the mid '90s, early 2000s, it was a very different landscape to what it is now. But I think every young fella growing up in that kind of testosterone charged environment, you want to think you know how to handle yourself if stuff turns pear shaped. I always loved training. You know, as a kid, I used to love cross country. I loved playing footy, and I used to do well in cross country, and I used to do well in nippers. So I used to love the idea of, you know, if you stay fit, you can achieve things, you know. And so going into my teens, I used to love training. Kobe was a big advocate of training and staying fit, you know, running the beach. Boxing was a big thing as well. We had Ronnie Reardon, was an older guy who fought for Australian titles. He was a great boxer, so boxing was a big part of growing up in Maroubra. Kurt Barham, he also, you know, fought professionally and fought for Australian titles, and was a phenomenal boxer. So that was always, and I loved boxing. I loved it, one, to learn the skill of boxing, for self-defense, being able to handle yourself, and two, just to stay fit as well. So when Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu sort of was introduced to Maroubra, I think in the kind of early 2000s by Bruno Pano and Alex Prats, yeah, we were just all over it, you know. It was just another element of staying fit, but learning a skill, you know, in combat sports. Yeah, when heaps of the boys just got involved, so it was a great atmosphere to be learning Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu with all your mates, all learning together. We all started competing straight away in the New South Wales Federation Cups, and yeah, it was great. So I just that led me to MMA, you know, because again, I'd always whether I really thought about it too much, but you know, as soon as I started boxing, would you think you'd ever have a boxing fight? You know, without even thinking, yeah, I'd fight. You know, just being my, you know, ego getting in the way, and just, you know, like I said, I had that small man syndrome, trying to prove myself all the time, having that little chip on your shoulder. You know, that was the same when I started doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I started competing, and then, you know, MMA started getting on the scene, you know, a little bit with those very early, you know, VHS tapes of the UFC with Royce Gracie winning, and, you know, all those crazy fights in those early days.
How they were matching people up back in the day made no sense.
No sense at all. You know, there were a few rules, but very limited rules. You know what I mean? And so, you know, when I would get asked about that, you would have tried doing that, because we were doing a bit of grappling and obviously doing boxing. To me, that's all MMA was, basically. You know, a bit of striking on your feet and a bit of grappling on the ground. Yeah, I was quick to say, yeah, I'll do that. Even though the thought of it terrified me, and I shit myself just thinking about it. Yeah, I sort of threw my hat in the ring, and then once I did, I sort of wanted to sort of see it through, and yeah, I did, and I started basically. Had my first MMA fight in 2006, and had no idea how I'd perform, if I just, you know, freeze when that door closed of the cage and then just get the shit punched out of me, or if I could remember a little bit of my my training and try and get the job done. But yeah, it was it's been a blessing in disguise, to be honest, because had I not found you know, martial arts in boxing, and thank God the Brazilian fellas, you know, Bruno and Alex, you know, moved to Maroubra, you know, when I was about 18, and introduced us to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It provided me such a positive avenue, and provided direction, discipline, at a time that, looking back now, was very needed. You know what I mean? I was kind of going off the rails a little bit. Thought I could burn the wick at both ends, and whatever I did on the piss didn't have any consequence or whatnot. And it gave me that kind of that avenue for a little bit of like I said, discipline, and like committing to something, you know, and having that in my life was very was needed, for sure.
Yeah, you talk about that, and one thing I've noticed is the BJJ is really popular in surf culture.
Yeah, it's a big crossover. Yeah,
really big crossover, and I think it probably comes from, obviously, in Brazil, surfing and obviously their home sport of BJJ are real loves and passions of a lot of their residents and their people there.
Yeah.
But you speak about it giving you some direction and, I guess, some stability in life.
Yeah.
Those times, obviously, in your younger years were a little bit crazy, and growing up in that scene. Yeah. Do you feel like things could have gone completely differently if you didn't find BJJ?
Yeah, for sure. It was, you know, between, I guess, starting to party and stuff around 15 through to like your early 20s, I was drawn right into that lifestyle. You know, I love going out with my mates and having a good time. And you know, growing up in Maroubra, fighting and violence was no big deal. You know, it was very much as a part of the life down there. And it was a very different time too. There's no like cameras and you know, mobile phones that capture everything. So you could get away with a lot more. You know, people say it made it more, I guess, allowable in a way to get into blues on this, because the repercussions weren't as immediate and as heavy as they are now. Times have changed now. You can't do a whole lot without being recorded and get in trouble, which is great, because it's a stupid way to live, and it's a silly mentality to have. But that was the case when we were growing up. So I found myself going out partying and getting into trouble and getting into fights. Like I said, I thought nothing had consequence, and that I could burn the wick at both ends, until, of course, I found myself in front of the court with assault charges, and then a serious one stemming from the Gold Coast, that I was extradited back to Southport to face charges of grievous bodily harm, and that coinciding with me, you know, finding BJJ and starting to fight in mixed martial arts and fight professionally. Also having some success in my surfing career as well, you know, chasing big waves and having some support off sponsors. Things were doing really well, and this was like a moment and a slap in the face where I realised if I was to keep living the lifestyle I was living, where I thought I could get away with everything, there was no consequence, and you know, I could live in that reckless lifestyle. The goals and I guess you know, the things I was hoping to accomplish, both in surfing and martial arts, would be quickly, you know, pulled from underneath my feet. And
definitely,
I was looking at a potential, you know, jail time for the grievous bodily harm. So I'd just come off a good behaviour bond for a previous assault charge when I you know, fucked up and got in trouble on the Gold Coast. So I guess it paints a little bit of a picture of where I was at that stage. You know, I was in my early 20s. Not giving a fuck about a lot. Didn't think that, anyone would ever come back to bite me. But obviously that's a very immature and naive way to look at life, and it was quickly changed by that whole experience of going through court and potentially, like I said, having everything, you know, swept from under my feet. But it was jiu-jitsu, martial arts, that gave me that discipline, that responsibility, and that structure in my life that you know, I needed at that time, and I could fall back on and use that as a way of keeping my head clear, getting through the court case, and then having that there as a way of focusing my energy, you know, and that's what I did, and I try to stay true to the goals that I'd given myself in mixed martial arts and jiu-jitsu and competing in both, and also surfing. I wanted to pay back the sponsors that had supported me and backed me as well. I wanted to go out there and do the best I could surfing wise, because they stood by me through the court case, and it was a pivotal moment in my growing up. And although it was probably the lowest point, and I was really ashamed of putting my family through that, ashamed and putting the victim through that as well. You know, really not proud of any of it at all, but having not experienced that, I kind of fear something similar maybe would have happened a bit further in life, and maybe the consequences and the cost might have been a lot greater, you know. So
it's a catalyst for real change, isn't it? And one thing that I've found is I've had a couple of fighters on the show now, and you know, Muay Thai fighters, MMA fighters, a real mix, and you speak to all of these guys and they say that as you progress in professional fighting, it's almost like the better you get, the humbler you get in most cases. And it's kind of like that humbleness and knowing that your confidence and your skill set is there. You know, you jokingly said earlier that small man syndrome that you kind of had, that charge, that ego growing up, that kind of removes itself almost, because you don't have to prove yourself anymore.
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it better myself. Any martial art across the board, I think, really is really humbling. I think no more so than jiu-jitsu, you know. You can walk on the mat, you know, like a young 21-year-old, chest pumped out, think, you know, you're going to wipe the mats with everyone, and you get submitted by, you know, a lady, 50-kilo hairdresser, you know. She puts you to sleep. There's no more humbling experience than that. And I was really blessed with great instructors like, you know, the guys I mentioned earlier, Bernardo Treco, who I'm catching up with today while I'm down here, Matty Gardner, my striking coach. I mean, I've got I've had so many people help me out along the way, and there's one common thread that they all are humble guys, and if you don't get that ego in check, it, you know, relatively quickly while you're in that gym, you sort of don't last for long. And yeah, it's the more you develop as a martial artist, I think that's a part of the process. You start to realise as you learn more skills, you know, where and when, you know, to apply them. And if you want to, you know, get in there and test yourself, and you have that drive, you know, I guess, to fight, and you do it in the right arena, to be on the mats or in the cage or in the ring or where it may be, and you know, you don't do it out in the pub or at a party. And that was definitely my case. You know, once I started taking MMA seriously, I don't think I had to fight outside of you know, outside of the gym or outside of, you know, the ring. Yeah, you know, it was that turning point, that court case, and that myself taking those things seriously, that yeah, I haven't found myself in trouble since. And it's also getting the drinking in check as well. You know, I still love to have a beer and a good time, but not to the point where I was doing it, you know. And yeah, so grateful for those experiences. Like I said, it takes, yeah, it was tough, because the more as you get older too, I really, yeah, what happened in the Gold Coast was just, in a nutshell, was a drunken sort of pub fight, and then in amongst that pub fight, I hit a bloke who said he wasn't involved, and had to go back and face the music, and thank God the judge for what it was. And I didn't, yeah, I pled guilty, but you know, I didn't receive a sentence, but it was that wake up call, and yeah, really regretful of having to, you know, of that whole experience, but very grateful for the lessons it's left with me. So yeah, now without that, I don't know how I would have achieved, or, you know, the things I have in my fighting career and surfing career, and like you mentioned before, the crew and those kind of things, all these positive things have come off the back of that change, you know.
As they say in life, you win or learn, right?
Yeah, exactly. And like I say, it's sometimes easy to say and not so easy to put into practice when you're going through a tough loss. But it's very true, very true.
Talk to me about the progression from, obviously, it's one thing to start professionally fighting. It's another thing to start fighting under the UFC banner.
Yep.
And for anyone from Australia, especially the time that you broke into the UFC, we're starting to see a little bit more of it now with the Anzacs, you know. A lot of guys from NZ, a couple of guys from Australia who are doing really well. And, you know, for us, we've got a hometown hero.
Here, exactly.
Mr. Volkanovski. And
lucky enough to be beat up a few times with Volko.
Yeah, well, you guys would have been fighting same weight class, right? So
well, kinda. We're kind of similar builds, but Volko came down in weight, you know, from middleweight originally, and when we were training together,
we were all the front rower.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So he was like, I think he was just coming out of fighting at welterweight. I fought from flyweight through to lightweight, but at that time I think I was fighting at flyweight in the UFC. So yeah, but he's just as strong as a bull. So regardless of, you know, the similarity in size, he's just a monster on the mats and in sparring.
Great wrestler too, eh?
Phenomenal wrestler. Phenomenal across the board. As you can see, you don't become a world champion, beat Max Holloway twice for being average anywhere, you know. But yeah, like you said, Australia and New Zealand are on fire at the moment. We've got a huge card tomorrow with a few of the Anzacs on it. You know, Rob Whittaker, our first, you know, undisputed Australian champ. Yeah, and when I was signed to the UFC, or when I first started fighting MMA, to be signed to the UFC wasn't even an option in my weight classes. I was fighting. I was a bantamweight. You know, I was walking around 66 kilos, fighting at 62. But I'd fight up at featherweight. You know, I fought in the smashes at lightweight as well. You know, just to get the experience and stay active as a fighter, because there wasn't that many opportunities as a lighter fighter in Australia to stay active. So you had to bounce around weight classes a bit. Yeah, and then obviously the UFC finally brought in those lighter weight classes, and that's where I realised, wait a minute, there could be an opportunity here. You know what I mean? If I put my head down and you know, get a good record behind myself, and then then the smashes popped up, and yeah, that was a phenomenal experience. Didn't quite get the results I was hoping, but you know, I was able to, I guess, put myself on the map when it came to the UFC and get my foot in the door. And I told the guys at the UFC that I couldn't make flyweight. I hadn't fought at flyweight at that stage, but I knew that was the newest of the weight classes. So I made it aware to them that I'm happy to make flyweight if they're looking to build that division. I left the house, got a few nice wins outside the house, and then the phone, you know, rang, and they wanted me as a flyweight. So I was over the moon.
Talk to me about that house experience.
Mate, it was a little surreal, to be honest. It was a great experience. It wasn't one I'd jump at again necessarily.
Yeah. What season?
It was, I think it was in the late teens. I was 18 or 19.
It was tough, wasn't it?
It was tough.
Yeah.
So, it was,
so that's the old, for anyone listening who doesn't know, if you remember earlier days UFC, or at least in the last 10 years, the Ultimate Fighter was a big part of that progression and that journey into the UFC, and has rightfully been the path for some of the biggest stars in UFC history.
Absolutely.
And now it's more so like the Contender Series, it seems to has taken that sort of top spot for the way to get in.
Well, I think I've heard whispers they're still trying to do one. I think I heard maybe Masvidal and Covington, or they're trying to. So it's not completely. I think they're just spacing it out now a lot more.
Well, the only reason I think it hasn't been as successful as it used to be is just network television.
Yeah, exactly.
Which I think is the issue, where most of the other ones.
It played a huge part in getting the UFC more mainstream. The success of that, the Stephen Bonner, Forrest Griffin series, which is the
first ever UFC fight I watched.
Yeah, right.
Maybe a massive Forrest Griffin fan. Guy's a nutcase.
He's a nutcase. But it's So we Australia was given the opportunity to host a team of fighters from the UK. The divisions were lightweight and welterweight. I applied as a lightweight. I was stoked to get selected. And you're in the house for 6 weeks, living with your opponents. It's just a series of you fight, you get eliminated, but you got to stay in the house, so you can still keep training with your training partners, and you eventually fight your way to a final spot. And the people who win that final fight are given a contract to the UFC. And there was also you always feel like if you put in good performance, you might be able to get the contract anyway. But it was a pretty tough season, our season. I think the only guys who got the contracts in the UFC were the final winners, or maybe the guys who made the final as well. I got to semi-final and got beaten in the semi-final, and it still serves a motivation to keep training hard and trying to get some wins under my belt to make it back in the UFC at a more preferred weight class for myself. And it's just a real environment to be in. Just all you see is the house and the gym for 6 weeks straight. There's no contact outside world, no newspapers, no music, no television, no books to read, no nothing. So it's a little pressure cooker environment made for drama, which I guess is what they're aiming for. But you definitely felt homesick, and it was a pretty grueling training schedule that George Soropoulos had us try to adhere to. He's pretty old school in his approach to training, and it was tough. And I took a lot of great takeaways from the whole experience. It was a tough, grueling 6 weeks.
Definitely. We talk about success, and you've obviously had success in many areas of your life now, especially with your fighting and your surfing and, on telly and all that stuff too. And the thing that really strikes me is if you look at the crew that you grew up with, no pun intended there, you guys have all really done big things in your life. Do you think it comes from that mentality of just charging hard at every opportunity that was there?
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
Because it's rare to see that. The whole group, you know what I mean, has really done well for themselves.
Yeah, I do feel very lucky to have been surrounded by so many. At the time, we didn't. You're all young kids. You don't really realise, but guys who were driven to succeed in whatever they had chosen. From NRL to their profession, whether it be law or physio or building a business in a trade.
You're tight with Johnny Sutton, eh?
Yeah, me, Johnny Sutton, Rennie Matua, and Leader Matua, Bobby Falloon, all grew up together. All guys who have made top level NRL, play for their country, and they've got mates who just even those guys who build a business in their trade. Is something that I've admired, and so that drive to succeed, and you also got a lot of support down from the group of guys that we grew up with. If you put your hand up and said, I want to be a lawyer, I want to be, play, in the NRL, boys are going to back you. Go fucking oath, mate. Go for it. Train hard. Don't get on the piss with it. Do what you got to do to achieve it. But if you put your hand up and say, I want to be a knucklehead and get in the blues and carry on like a pork chop, you're going to get support for that as well. Sweet, let's go get a beer. Let's go. So it was you had to sort of, I guess looking back, there's all kinds of influences down there, and I guess. Being older now, I wish I'd have put more emphasis on different influences and not being caught up in others. I would have had probably a less bumpy road to get to where I, wanted to get to. But that's life, and we were very lucky to have a lot of positive, influences and role models growing up down there. Like I said, there are equally as many, stories that aren't so positive. A lot of mates have gone to jail and made poor choices through drinking and drugs and party life, which I guess you don't. They're not as known about, of course, as the NRL success or surfing success, but just as much opportunity down there to make dumb decisions and go down a not so shiny path. But very lucky to have a lot of guys that surround myself or grew up with that were driven to push themselves, and it kind of rubbed off, kind of like I was never sat down and lectured so much by my mates, but just by watching them do well, and that was particularly in that period where I was going through the court case, and Macari D'Souza, Mark Matthews, two of my closest mates, were just out there achieving things in their careers, what they had set out to do, they wouldn't so much sit down and lecture me on what I should and should be doing, but they just got on about their day and achieving the things that they were out to achieve, and I'd watch that, and go, fuck, what am I doing here? Spending all this money on lawyers, going to court, just working every day, laying carpet just to pay lawyers' bills. I want to get out there trying to chase some of the biggest waves in the world. I want to get back to martial arts. I want to compete and win titles. And by those guys just going out there and doing their thing, you know what I mean? It served as motivation for me to get on that bandwagon with them, you know what I mean? So there's a lot of those influences. And like I said, had I just said, fuck this, I'm just going to go down the pub and get in the piss and just drown my sorrows, I would have had just as many mates to join me doing that as well. And that would have just been a rabbit hole of more trouble and a slippery slope to not so positive outcomes,
Mate, 100%, and everyone's faced with that decision at life. I hear that, and I think, does it ever run through your mind, not from a point of regret, but a point of almost counting your lucky stars, that if you'd never ventured across to Maroubra, like if you'd spent, the earlier years of your life in the middle of Western Sydney or on the other side of the beach, that maybe the life you're living, just none of these stories are there to tell. You don't have those highlight reels and even those low moments to learn from.
Yeah, look, I haven't really invested too much thought into what really would have happened had I lived in away from the beach. And I try to be optimistic about it, but I don't think it would have fared too well, because I was always that kid with plenty of energy who loved to impress his mates, was a sucker for peer pressure, and without having the beach there, which was such a positive outlet, and I said, my uncle was a surfer, I did nippers, it was something to focus that enthusiasm and energy into. I'm pretty sure I would have found myself in a bit of strife, And now, even today, I could never live away from the coast. I was so grateful for growing up around the beach. The ocean to me is such a place of therapy and calm, and it's and it's a place where I love to be, whether it be surfing, spearfishing, fishing, hanging out with my mates. The culture down there is amazing, and I could never see myself living away from the ocean, and so grateful that was my backyard growing up, because had I not had that, who knows? I don't know what I would have fallen into, my passions would have been had I grown up at the back of Penrith, or who knows? Not to say there's nothing out there positive, so I'm sure there is. I can see I've got lots of mates who live out that way and have great lives and stuff, but for me, myself, I don't know what it would have been, you know what I mean? Maybe motocross or something, but I don't know how it would end up.
I can see that. Something extreme.
But
you know what, though? The thing that strikes me is listening to you talk about how all of these passions formed in your life. It was really community-based, and I don't know if it's, if it's a time that you grew up in where you stayed in your community, you had your mates in your community, and most people were close, where I feel like we don't really have that in today's society for the young fellas growing up and sort of coming into that adulthood. There's not really real senses of communities where you stay there, you grow your passion from there. That's where you guys all come from, and you spend every day together, whether it's surfing, fighting, playing footy, whatever it is. Shout out to Tony Hawk riding past the studio at the moment.
Maybe, I agree. I think as a young bloke, you had this this sense of wanting to be a part of something, you know. I mean, be a part of a brotherhood or a community, and growing up in Maroubra, it definitely served that, you know. Like the board riders was like, you know, they run one comp a month through winter, and I could not wait for that day to come, you know. I mean, I just loved being down there. The boys were writing off. You know, you have a social, you surf, you know, try and do best in your heat, and mate, it was just being part of that community was such a draw, you know what I mean? And I think you're right, whether it be like a footy club or whatever it may be, you know, as a young fella being part of that tribe and being surrounded by peers and guys your same age, older men who you can look up to and hopefully can give you some direction and some good influence. I think it's primal, you know what I mean? I think it's how we've evolved by going off on hunts with the older guys, you know, when we were hunter-gatherers and yeah, it was really important for myself to be part of that, and I was just very fortunate that Maroubra had such a strong, you know, community and that sense of brotherhood. And yeah, I think unfortunately these days, you know, that times are changing so much, and it's getting a lot more like insular. I guess people keep themselves a lot more, which is unfortunate. But yeah, I am seeing a shift now, like that people are trying to put an emphasis back on that. You know what I mean? And guys my age or older, we're trying to make sure like we can, you know, get up real early on a one, say, weekday or one day of the weekend and have a real early surf, you know, because now everyone's busy, but trying to make time to all bond back together and connect. I've got mates in South Australia who are just doing like men's groups now, trying to create those little times where you can bond back with your mates and do something, whether it be go for a training session or a surf. And yeah, I think it's it is, you know, I guess lacking in the younger generation these days. But it's vital, you know what I mean? I think it is. So
well, that's how I met this bloke, the Active Boys Run Club.
Well, there you go. Yes, I mean, these clubs and these,
get around a couple of lads just running, and it's sort of community grows, and you make new mates, and you make mates who've got common interests and similar passions, and you're driving each other to achieve things, and it's great. You need community in your life.
And even when things aren't going so good, you got people there to talk to, you know. 100%. They might be going through something similar, or they might just be good at listening and just give that opportunity to get something off your chest, you know. And like, I got so it's so important to have that, you know. I think in terms of everything, like just for you to feel motivated and try to achieve the things you want to achieve in life, but also for guys, and we all know how prevalent, you know, mental health is with young men in particular, but I mean across the board it's run rife. But I think these kind of groups and these communities serve a huge purpose in helping with that, you know what I mean, and bringing awareness and giving guys an avenue to chat and talk. And
definitely,
so I couldn't agree more. They're super valuable to a society as a whole.
With all your travels and everything that you've been able to do and experience within, I guess, your career or within just life in general, if you had to go back and sort of select a highlight reel, what would be some of those big moments that, you know, maybe the absolute peaks of life, peaks of careers, where it's almost pinch yourself moments? Yeah,
like I've been really lucky to travel, and of course, you know, wanting to chase big waves and make that as a career, you're sort of obviously drawn to all these big wave destinations around the world, which was such a sense of adventure and so much fun, and so many fond trips of a lot of them just traveling around Australia trying to find new big waves, you know what I mean? Because you know, trying to get exposure through the surf media, if you could find a new big wave, it was all of a sudden breaking news, and you got a lot more exposure. So those trips, not knowing where you were going or what you're going to find, were you know, with a bunch of your best mates, were amazing. But one trip in particular to Tahiti with Mark Matthews, Mikari D'Souza, you know, Mick Lawrence from the crew, like it was for the crew. So I was there with our best mates, and we chased a spell there, and it was just 4 days of amazing surf, you know, like between the sort of 10 to 20 foot range for those 3 to 4 days.
Was that Chopu?
Yeah, we surfed Chopu, and we just got some amazing waves. It was just, you know, in an island paradise. It was beautiful, and I was not only with my best mates, you know, who were involved in the crew, but some of my best mates, you know, in the big wave surfing community from around the world. You know, guys from Hawaii and Queensland and Brazil, and you know, the whole sort of big wave surfing community from around the world were there for this swell because it was such a phenomenal forecast. That's one I was look back on and go, fuck, I was forever grateful for that experience, you know, because I got some of the best waves of my life. Lucky to come out of it unscathed. You know, there's a few bumps and bruises, but I mean, one day I was involved in 4 trips to the hospital, taking guys to get stitches or broken bones or whatnot. So it was a pretty eerie, eerie sort of scenario in terms of, it was very real and prevalent.
On the back of your mind the whole time.
Yeah,
right?
it was constantly there. So, but that was when I look back at photos of that trip or see footage of it, I'm just like, fuck, can't believe that happened. That was just such a crazy. We're only there for 4 or 5 days, like just there for the swell, but just to sit in paradise, have a beer after surfing, some amazing waves, with your heart in your throat the whole time, and eat beautiful food, hang out with some great guys from around the world. It was pretty special. So yeah, feel grateful to have those experiences.
Is life very similar for you now? Like obviously, a few years on from things like the crew, and you obviously surfing and martial arts is still a massive part of your life. Are the new elements, the things that are changing, what's evolving?
Yeah, well, I'm become a father now, so my daughter Grace just turned 4 a couple of weeks ago, so that's been obviously a huge change. And with that, the responsibilities of life have sort of been kicked in a little bit more. I mentioned my shoulder injury last year, had a full shoulder reco. It was the first time I've had an injury that's required proper surgery. It put me on the sideline for an extended period of time, and it's the first time I've had that when I felt like I've actually had real responsibility now. I've had a mortgage to pay, I've got a child to look after, and all that kind of stuff. So that's changed. Like things, I've got different priorities now. No, definitely. And I fought last year, so the year before last, I made my professional boxing debut, which was great, and I'd love to jump back in the cage, but to try and find the time, that 25 hours, 30 hours a week to commit to training for mixed martial arts. Now with these other responsibilities, I feel it is a very selfish lifestyle you got to live. By all means, you have to. You know what I mean? You can't go in there underdone, and you got to make sure your preparation has been on point. And I respect the sport enough to know what it takes to jump back in there and what I've got to sort of commit to. So like things like that have changed. Whereas, in my 20s, before I became a father and had a mortgage or whatnot, and it was before I was married. I could do things at the drop of a hat. I could take risks. I could travel around the world, say yes to a fight in 3 weeks' notice. None of that really. It was, that was pretty free in that respect. I could just, now everything's will be a bit more calculated and a bit more thought out. I'm not the only one that is to consider in these decisions. So like that, that's just part of life when you take on these roles of parenthood and the rest of it. So now there's a bit more emphasis on work and earning money, but I still love to surf, love to travel, love to live a little spontaneous when I can, and still chase that adrenaline and enjoy life to the fullest. Now it's just got to be a little bit more calculated, I guess. Like I said,
100%. 100%, and you got a smile on your face when you talk about it, mate. So you can see family, all that stuff, big part of your life now, and it's good to see.
Yeah, it's unreal. Look, I wouldn't change anything. It's she's magic, my Grace, my little daughter, and but yeah, I you know what? And I guess with this shoulder injury, I was like, people ask me, "You're gonna still gonna do these, surf these waves, and do this now? You got other things to think about?" And I'm like, yeah, like I'm always gonna want to do that. I might scale it down a little or change it or be like I said, think about things differently. But I want to be that for my child as well. I want to be that parent that is an example of
100%.
Following your passions and doing your love, and not take other people's opinions of what you should be doing at this stage of your life. You're a dad now. You've got a mortgage, you've got a child, you've got to pay school fees, blah blah. You shouldn't be going out there this risky behaviour. I'm like, no, I think if that's what makes you tick and is what you're passionate about, you should never close the door on it. Obviously evaluate it differently, but I want to be the example that don't take society's view on things that now you're at this stage of your life, you shouldn't do this, or you're getting old, you've got to look after your body differently, you can't get injured. I'm like, I don't know, I don't want to fall into that trap of thinking that way. I want to be 60 and still chasing that adrenaline rush and do it. Sure, it's going to look different to what it looked when I was 21, but I still want to be living life to the fullest and doing things and be that example for my daughter to live life to her fullest, whatever that may be. But just don't fall in the trap of believing what other people view is the right way to live their life.
I love to hear that, mate. It's so good to hear. I'm going to let you go because you're down here for a jiu-jitsu seminar today.
Yeah, doing a no-gi seminar at Life BJJ, which is going to be a lot of fun. So
it's good to hear, mate. Before we go, I want to almost get a bit of Richie Vas wisdom for the young, especially for the young fellas out there, because you've spoken a lot today about, you know, your transition into manhood and the lessons that you learned, along with all the great, there were some harsh lessons there and lessons you probably hope that if you could teach someone a little bit before they got or went down that path, to sort of avoid it and to understand some of the big things you've learned in your life. Is there any advice or wisdom you have for the younger fellas who are finding their feet?
Yes, it's such a hard one too, you know, because I think there's no greater teacher than experience, you know. And I can tell young blokes, and I truly believe, like, know that going out and getting in fights it's such a backwards mentality. I grew up thinking that's what it was. That's what you got to do to be a man, and that's what you got to do to prove that you're growing up and that you're tough and whatnot. But I think being tough is being true to yourself and yeah, living life according to that. You know that. Yeah, because I stemmed away from that. I know that I had great parents and they gave me a great upbringing, and I knew that things I was doing weren't right when I was doing them, but I was tricked into doing them by myself and by, you know, a victim of being, you know, peer pressure. It's no one's fault but myself for doing those things and getting into trouble, and you know, these repercussions, you know, to that, and you know, people that are hurt by it, you know, which I'm still, still very sorry for, but. As a young bloke growing up, I think that's a huge thing, is to not be fooled into doing things to impress others that may not be true to yourself, you know what I mean? And growing up and thinking that being tough is to get on the piss and get into a blue, you know, it could be further from the truth, you know. Anyone can do that, you know. Anyone can be a pork chop, get on the drink and have a fight. There's nothing tough in that at all. But being tough is, yeah, putting your hand up and say, all right, I'll get on the mats and compete in a jiu-jitsu tournament, or I'll get on the field and play football, you know, and try to achieve a certain level of that, or get in the ring. And if that's what you want to do, they're the environment you do it in, and you know, if you want to try to prove you're tough, and I think staying true to yourself is a big takeaway. You know what I mean? That it's trying not to be a victim of that peer pressure and impressing people the wrong way. You know, if that's how you want to do it, there's plenty of ways to do it. You know, walk into a gym and get involved in any kind of martial arts, and you know, there's plenty of avenues there to prove yourself in that regard if you want to, and also don't let fear sort of get in the way of your dreams and goals. You know, fear is a great motivator. It's a great teacher. It's there for a reason, but yeah, the biggest sense of the best feeling can often be just on the other side of that fear. You know what I mean? If you can just work with it, acknowledge that it's there, and still achieve what you want to do, it's amazing. So don't let the fear of something, because the fear is often, you know, the thought of something is a lot worse than the actual doing what it may be. You know, I've sat there plenty of times when the waves are big, thinking of all the, you know, possible, you know, negative outcomes or scenarios that could happen, and you know, your heart rate goes up and you're terrified, and you go out there and none of that happens, you know what I mean? And you're so shitting yourself on the rocks about things that may or may not happen that you almost talk yourself out of it, and you get out there, you get the best wave of your life, and realise none of that, what was running through my head on the rocks, actually even happened. So it's the same whether you know, for a fight, this guy's gonna, you know, he's gonna fucking knock me out, or he's gonna break my arm, or all these crazy thoughts. You know, they're a lot crazier than the actual event itself. So don't let those thoughts of fear stop you from trying to achieve what you want to. Because I've been in that situation, and so like I said, some of the best moments of your life are just on the other side of that fear. So
yeah, what a good bunch of takeaways. Fight the fear. To be tough is to be true to yourself. You heard the man himself say it, that some of the greatest lessons in life are on the other side of fear, but also taught through experience. And if experience is the greatest teacher, then the experience is the greatest pod. So get behind it. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in, as always. Richie, mate, it's been an absolute pleasure. What a story. And
thanks for having me on.
Very appreciative of you taking the time out of your day and coming down to be a part of it.
And what I meant by that, experience is the biggest teacher, is like, and I've seen this happen many times. I've sort of sat down with kids who are going through a bit of trouble and try to tell them through my experience what happened, and like try and not let them go down that path. Unfortunately, it takes their own experience for them to realise that, you know, and then they turn around and go, oh, you know, what you're saying was true, and I wish it, that's why, you sometimes nothing can actually make that penny drop than experience. So unfortunately, sometimes it has to go down that road, but I'd love for people to get takeaways and take something away from this, to have them not go down that and not have to have a negative experience and have things spin off the back of that, which aren't always as positive. So experience. Here we are. We're on the experience, and it's the life's best teacher, I think.
Mate, well, without doubt, there'll be at least one, or if not a good few, that listen to this today, and there'll be plenty of takeaways. So very appreciative for your time.
Thanks,
Richie Vas, ladies and gentlemen, all of his links, descriptions, tags will be in today's show notes. So make sure you go get around this guy, get around everything he's doing, and continue to support him, but also the show. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Take care.